is my first time meeting you, and you're amazing. And Fran, I met years ago. I remember being captivated by her work. There was this mystique about her portraits that drew me in. And I remember at one of her art shows, she actually donated some of her paintings to a few of us at Garrett Seminary. Voting rights activist Stacey Abrams was one of the first paintings to go, and eventually two remained. Oprah Winfrey, which had the year 2020 and a question mark at the bottom because there was talk of her running for president, which she later declined. And the other was of Senator Kamala Harris. And I said, well, I don't know much about the senator, and I've always admired Oprah, so I'll take Oprah. Little did I know that Vice President Kamala would be running for president of the United States so many years later. Yes. And I mean, I'm happy with my choice, but I wish I had the foresight and the optimism to see what was coming down the line. I will say of Fran that she is not only an artist, but a prophetic artist speaking truth to power. She will hang the truth on the wall and encourage us to think about what's going on in the world and how we can make a difference. My topic tonight is find your stream and swim in it, being authentic in challenging times. My daughter came home from out of state a couple of months ago, and she was obsessed with a quote from Vice President Kamala, which really struck a chord with young people, so much so that it went viral. Memes and little songs were everywhere. And it was Kamala quoting her mother saying, you think you just fell out of a coconut tree? And then came the explanation. You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you. And I imagine this statement went viral because it was a reminder to young people and so many of us that we come from something, right? We are the products of our ancestors' dreams. We didn't just appear out of nowhere without connection to our historical context. We, as women, come from a long lineage of ancestors who fought against inequality and oppression and suppression. We vote because of the women's suffrage movement and the Susan B. Anthonys of the world, because of the civil rights movement and the women behind the scenes like Fannie Mae Hamer and Diane Nash and Septima Clark. In Evanston, we have reparations because we know our history and we honor those who came before us. We swim in the stream that belongs to us, and we try to continue the tradition of living better, doing better, and paving the way for the next generation. We have the Fifth Ward School in the works because we know that it is the right thing to do, given our history and the need for children to have a quality education in their vicinity without having to be bused to other schools. I am a native of Evanston, grew up on the west side near Dodge and Oakton, and and while this is, without a doubt, a great place to live and raise your children, it can sometimes be challenging to find your stream. Everyone has a thing, and during my time here, everyone had a club or an organization to call home, and I didn't quite fit in with the socialites or the church folks or the academics or the journalists, and I didn't quite have the edge to be a social activist out there making things happen, so I began to wonder, how do I find my stream? I went to talk to teachers and professors and just mentors and relatives over the years, and they all said the same sort of things. Don't worry. You just haven't found your tribe. You haven't found your people. You haven't found your stream yet. And then I'd ask, well, how do I do that? And again, they all gave similar answers. They said, the more you are brave enough and courageous enough to be authentically you, the more your people will come. And so I stopped feeling a certain kind of way because I didn't fit a mold that people thought I should fit or that I wanted to fit. And I moved in a direction that brought me peace and affirmation, and that is writing. And not just writing, right? But I began to record history, my context, and all that I came from through the lens and the rhythms that I was given as an African-American middle-class woman who is Christian. I grew up reading novelists like Toni Morrison and Terry McMillan and Alice Walker and Tina McElroy Ansa, and poets like Gwendolyn Brooks and June Jordan and Nikki Giovanni. These women were home to me. Aside from the external factors of life, these women, through their art, told me as a teenager that I was beautiful and my waters of worth run deep, flowing from the African shores. Through their work, I learned that I am made with this sort of built-in resiliency that helps me overcome a society that will do all it can to keep you from being powerful beyond measure, as Marianne Williamson once penned. These women taught me if you can't find your stream, you had better create your own and blaze a trail for others so that they can push forward past those who try to turn back the hands of time and pretend that the sacrifices made and the lives lost on our behalf were a figment of our imagination. These women taught me about being a Black woman. It meant I had a certain measure of wisdom that I could tap into, a quadrilateral, as the United Methodists like to say, based on reason and tradition and experience and scripture. When trouble comes your way, you had better know how to swim through the narrow channels of life, and sometimes all you have to rely on are tradition, scripture, reason, and experience. Tradition, what happened in the past? How did they make it over? How can we learn from them and do better? Reason, does it make sense? Is it worth the risk? Experience, how has your life experience informed your current situation? What have the experiences of others taught you, taught us? And finally, scripture. What is God speaking to your heart as you read the sacred text of your religion or recall a meaningful experience in seasons of your past? Where is God in your journey? Dr. Emil Towns, president of the Society of Christian Ethicists, speaks on a womanist dancing mind, a term coined from Toni Morrison. It could easily be coined the artist or the writer's dancing mind. Dr. Towns writes, the womanist dancing mind is more than our attempt to make sense of the worlds surrounding us, sometimes enveloping us, sometimes smothering us, sometimes holding us, sometimes birthing us. It is more than our desire to reconfigure the world in our own images and then invite others to come and inspect the textures, the colors, the patterns, the shapes, the sizes of this new order and this new set of premises. No, the womanist dancing mind is the one that comes from a particular community of communities yearning for our common fire, banked by the billows of justice and hope. Our task is to explore the twists and turns of the community from which we spring and have our very life and breath, end quote. So I decided that my stream is a narrative story. Amidst my times of ministry and working with students, mothering and daughtering, niecing, I wrote a novel. Fully fiction, but the voices are those of my mother's sisters who hail from the Mississippi to Evanston as part of the Great Migration that took place between 1910 and 1970. The framework is that of my father, whose mother didn't feel quite equipped to be a mother of 5 children, so she walked away and left the children to family near and far to raise them. I began to wonder, what if I write a narrative where the mother returns? What if there are deeper reasons why a mother would leave her children? What if we let God get in the middle of things and sprinkle a little love and a little tenderness into the situation through the voices of these Southern women? Through the daughters, you'll see the scenes that echo my experience of growing up in Evanston, as well as my time working with youth in Chicago's South Side. The story is based in the late 1980s when we all compared our lives to the Cosby Show. And life was a little simpler without cell phones and the like. The publishers are the ones who decided to call it, and aptly so, This Ain't No Promised Land. It took 16 years to get published through a traditional publisher. Many publishers asked for rewrites, which involved bleaching or whitewashing, if you will, only to deny it in the end. Mainstream folks said it was too Christian, and Christians said it was too secular. And some wanted it to be a young adult book, and others wanted women's fiction. Finally, after years of waiting and rewriting, my agent found a publisher consisting of mostly women who resonated with the story and understood the bond between mothers and daughters. They grew up in the 1980s, one of whom used to travel to Chicago's South Side in the summers with her father. They loved the story and only wanted to help improve it and make it more marketable. So I found my stream, small as it was. It was made for me and all that I am. And yes, I could have self-published, but I believe there was a place in the traditional publishing industry, and there was a place for me. And as I was opening doors, we as Black, Indigenous people of color, as we continue to open doors and push these doors of wanting and being published, the more we open doors for our stories to be heard. And as we move into November and 2025, it feels like we are part of a big wave, a push for women going further than we've ever gone before, shattering the glass ceiling, pushing boundaries, fighting for equality, fighting for equity, even though there are those who would like us to fall back and shrink away. We are called to keep moving forward, upstream if need be, letting everything else flow past and around us. This is who we are, and this is exactly what we are made to do. We did not fall out of a coconut tree.